My friends, there's one thing you do every night with the best of intentions that may be sabotaging your blood sugar while you sleep. And I'm not talking about a candy hidden in the drawer of the nightstand. I'm talking about a gesture that many consider healthy, but that, done in the wrong way, turns into a shot in the foot. You lay your head on the pillow thinking you've done everything right, and inside your body, a silent mechanism begins to work against you. The liver, which should be resting, goes into a state of alert and begins to manufacture glucose as if you were in danger. You wake up in the morning, look at your finger on the tip of the glucometer needle, and the number is higher than when you went to bed. The feeling it gives is one of defeat. You think, but how if I didn't eat anything during the night? This is the moment when simple logic abandons us, and we realize that the body is not a machine for adding calories and subtracting sugar. It is a biochemical orchestra that plays a different song while the sun does not rise. I saw this scene repeated for decades in the office. The patient arrives with the paper of the measurements, his eyes tired, his voice breaking, and shows me that stubbornly high fasting glucose. He made the walk, swapped French bread for wholemeal, cut out soda, but the morning number insists on rising. And what he never tells me in the 15-minute consultation, because the system doesn't give time for that, is that he has dinner early, drinks a cup of tea, and, before going to sleep, drinks a glass of milk thinking that this will calm his body and mind. Milk, for many people, is the symbol of maternal care, of warmth, of what prepares for a peaceful sleep. But what no one explains is that the industry pasteurized, homogenized, and packaged not only the milk, but also the information about it. And when information is packaged to sell, it misses the life-saving details. It becomes a generic label, any food on the shelf, as if all milk were the same. And it's not. The difference between a milk that destabilizes your blood sugar at night and a milk that calms your metabolism and delivers a lower fasting glucose in the morning is in a detail that almost no one tells you. A detail that I will reveal today, but not now. First, I need you to understand what's going on in the dark of your bedroom while you sleep. Because when you understand the mechanism, choosing the right milk will seem like the most obvious thing in the world. Think with me. Your body, during deep sleep, undergoes a cleaning that doesn't happen at any other time of the day. The brain contracts a little, making room between the cells for a clear liquid to wash away the toxins accumulated during the day. It's as if a cleaning crew walks into an office after everyone has left. This brain cleaning depends on a stable rhythm of insulin and glucose. If your blood sugar rises too much during the night, this cleaning crew works poorly, leaves residue behind, and you wake up with that feeling of a heavy head, as if you haven't slept at all. Now, what makes sugar go up during sleep if you're not eating? Most people believe that overnight fasting is a period of metabolic rest, but this is far from the truth. Around 3 in the morning, your body begins to release a series of substances that prepare you to wake up. Cortisol rises, growth hormone is in full swing, and the liver receives a signal to release glucose into the bloodstream. It is the so-called dawn phenomenon. But in those who have a certain resistance to insulin, this phenomenon gets out of control. The liver, which is already half deaf to insulin commands, interprets the signal in an exaggerated way. Instead of releasing a little glucose to start the day with energy, it opens the floodgates. The pancreas, on the other side, tries to compensate by making more insulin, but the cell door is jammed. Glucose is dancing in your blood with nowhere to go, and you wake up with that treacherous number on your display. This is where the milk story comes in. And I promise you 2 things. First, I will show that there is a specific type of milk that, drunk at an exact time before bedtime, can reduce this uncontrolled release of glucose by the liver by up to 30%, according to the evidence that physiology presents to us. Second, I'll explain why the milk you're probably drinking today has the opposite effect, even though it's the same white liquid in appearance, even though it has the same name on the packaging. These 2 promises will grow inside you during this video, and when I tie the ends together, you will understand that the problem was never the milk. The problem has always been the haste with which the information has been chewed up and spat out to you. I remember a patient, Mrs. Jenny, 72 years old, who arrived at the office almost crying. She said she was afraid to sleep. Fear of sleeping, imagine that. Because every morning she woke up with the feeling of a dry mouth, blurry vision, and sore finger from piercing so much to see the blood glucose that did not drop. She had done everything that the health center advised. He took the sugar out of the coffee, stopped with the cornstarch biscuit, started walking 20 minutes after lunch. But the morning number did not budge. When I asked her exactly what she did before bedtime, she said she drank a glass of warm milk with cinnamon because her grandmother taught her that it calmed her nerves and helped her sleep. The cinnamon was right, the intention was right, but the milk was wrong. And not because milk is a villain. Milk has proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and balance. But the milk that Mrs. Jeannie drank was skim milk, the one in the blue box, because someone told her that all fat is bad, that all fat clogs the veins, and that skim milk was the healthy version. That's when I asked her to sit down, took a deep breath, and said, "Mrs. Jeannie, you are drinking the wrong milk at the wrong time." And what happens inside the lady during the night explains why the blood glucose rises even without the lady eating anything. When you drink a glass of skim milk, you're basically ingesting water, lactose, and protein. Lactose is the natural sugar in milk. Without the fat to hold digestion, this lactose arrives very quickly in the intestine, is broken down into glucose and galactose, and falls into the bloodstream almost like a shotgun shot. The pancreas, already tired from the whole day, gets a fright and releases a gush of insulin to handle this peak. But insulin, when it rises like this suddenly, makes the sugar plummet. Around midnight, you can go into a rebound hypoglycemia. Your body panics because your brain needs glucose to survive. The brain is a greedy organ. It consumes about 20% of all the glucose that circulates in the blood, even when you are sleeping. If glucose drops too low, the brain triggers an alarm. The adrenal gland releases adrenaline. The liver is ordered to manufacture glucose in a hurry and throw it into the blood. It's the rebound. You went to sleep with 110 blood glucose, had an insulin spike because of the skimmed milk, dropped to 70 while you slept, and the liver, in a panic, threw you to 150 at 4 in the morning. You wake up with the high number, blame the dinner you ate 6 hours earlier, and never suspect the glass of milk that seemed like the most innocent gesture of your day. This mechanism that I just described is called the Samagi cycle. It's a technical name, I know, but keep that idea, not the name. Save the image of the trampoline. Insulin pushes sugar down with force and the body throws it back up with even more force. It's a seesaw that you don't see, but it wears down your pancreas, your liver, your blood vessels, while you're with your eyes closed, dreaming, totally oblivious to the battle that's going on inside you. Now here's what I want you to pay close attention to. When you drink the right milk, the effect is the opposite. Instead of an insulin spike, you have a slow, steady release of nutrients. Instead of a rebound at 4 in the morning, you have a liver that gets the message and reduces glucose production. Instead of waking up with a dry mouth and a heavy body, you wake up with the feeling that you've really rested. But to achieve this result, you need to understand what this right milk is. And the answer is not in television advertisements. The answer lies in the natural composition of milk that most people have dismissed as being the villain. Whole milk. But it's not just any whole milk, and it's not taken just like that. If you go out now and drink a glass of cold whole milk before bed, you may have a partial benefit or even digestive discomfort that disrupts sleep. The secret lies in 3 things: the type of protein you want to favor, the type of fat you want to preserve, and the preparation ritual that turns this milk into a clear biochemical signal for your body to go into nighttime repair mode. Milk protein is divided into 2 major groups. Casein is whey protein, which many call whey protein, but here we will call it whey protein to simplify. Casein corresponds to about 80% of the total milk protein, and it has a characteristic that is almost magical when we think about blood sugar control at night. Casein, in contact with stomach acid, forms a kind of gel, a clot. This makes her digestion extremely slow. While the lactose in skim milk is absorbed in 30 or 40 minutes, the casein in whole milk can take up to 7 hours to be completely digested. 7 hours, my friends, is practically the entire period of a night's sleep. This means that instead of a tsunami of sugar followed by a rebound, you have a gentle drip of amino acids and a small amount of glucose entering your bloodstream steadily. This drip sends a message to the liver. Rest assured, there is fuel coming. You don't need to despair and manufacture glucose now. The liver turns off the alarm mode, reduces the production of new glucose, and the blood glucose remains stable like a canoe on a windless lake. Now there is a detail here that changes everything. Casein needs a specific environment in the stomach to form this gel efficiently, and that's when many people cancel the benefit without knowing it. If you drink the milk cold, the clotting process is slower and less efficient. The stomach must first heat the liquid to the ideal temperature for the enzymes to act. This delays the formation of the gel, and some of the lactose can escape before the casein organizes, causing that initial spike you don't want. Warm milk, on the other hand, already arrives in the stomach at the temperature that enzymes like. The clot forms faster, digestion is more stable, and the drip of nutrients is more constant. Mrs. Ginny, when she told me that she drank warm milk with cinnamon, I said, "You got the temperature right, you got the cinnamon right, but you got the type of milk wrong." Cinnamon, by the way, is a powerful ally because it improves the sensitivity of insulin receptors. But this is a subject for another time. What matters now is that the temperature of the milk is not a silly grandma detail. It's a real physiological trigger. But the temperature is just the beginning. There is an even more common mistake that cancels out the benefit of night milk in a way that you don't even suspect. And this mistake is on the supermarket shelf, hidden behind beautiful words like enriched, lactose-free, semi-skimmed, light. See, I'm not here to demonize the dairy industry, but I have an obligation to tell you what the system doesn't tell. The food industry makes money by selling products that last longer on the shelf. To do this, she submits the milk to a process called ultrapasteurization, which heats the milk to very high temperatures for a few seconds. This process kills all bacteria, good or bad, and makes the milk last for months. The problem is that this extreme heat also alters the structure of milk proteins, especially casein. Denatured casein, that is, deformed by intense heat, does not form that stable gel that I mentioned. It forms a harder and more irregularly digested clot. Instead of a 7-hour gentle drip, you may have digestion that speeds up and slows down unpredictably, messing up the message the liver receives. It's like sending an internet signal that keeps dropping and coming back. The liver is confused, it does not know whether to produce glucose or not, and blood glucose can fluctuate during the night. And here's something I've learned from watching patients for years on end. People who drink fresh, preferably slow pasteurized milk, the one that still retains the cream when you let it rest, report a much greater feeling of nighttime satiety and wake up with more stable fasting blood glucose. Whole milk fat, which many fear because of cholesterol, plays a crucial role in this process. The fat globules in milk enclose some of the lactose and further slow down its absorption. Fat also stimulates the release of a hormone called cholecystokinin, which signals satiety to the brain and slows the emptying of the stomach. Cholecystokinin is like a conductor that governs the rhythm of digestion. When you have fat in your meal, the conductor raises the baton and commands, slower, slower. When you take the fat off, the conductor lowers the baton and the orchestra accelerates. The result is that insulin peak that we have already seen. So, skim milk, which was sold as the good guy in the story, in fact, for those with blood sugar problems, may be the wolf in sheep's clothing. It deceives with the promise of lightness and delivers a glucose roller coaster while you sleep. Pause with me for a moment. Breathe. Look inside yourself and ask yourself, how many nights of my life have I spent without knowing that the gesture of drinking the wrong milk before bed was sapping my rest, my energy for the next day, my vascular health, my memory? How many mornings have I woken up feeling my body heavy, my mind foggy, as if a thick fog was between me and the world, and I attributed it to age, to the normal tiredness of life, when in fact it was my metabolism crying for help? This feeling of waking up more tired than when you went to bed is one of the most underestimated signs that your nighttime blood glucose is out of control. Microcirculation, those tiny vessels that irrigate the brain, kidneys, eyes, suffers with each sugar spike. It's as if, at each dawn of oscillation, you lightly sand the inside wall of these vases. One day, the body notices. Another day, notice. But there comes a time when the damage accumulates, and the vision gets a little blurrier, and the memory fails a little more, and that tingling in the foot comes out of nowhere. I had a patient, Mr. Antonio, 65 years old, a retired bus driver. He came with the complaint that he was forgetting the names of his grandchildren. He looked at the boy's face, knew it was his blood, but the name escaped. He began to think it was Alzheimer's, that the future would be a slow blackout. When we investigated deeply, what was stealing Mr. Antonio's memory was not a protein plaque in the brain, thankfully. It was nocturnal rebound hypoglycemia. During the night, his brain ran out of stable fuel, The connections between neurons failed, and each morning he woke up with a cognitive deficit that took hours to recover. Su Antonio also had the habit of drinking a glass of milk before bed, but it was skim milk with artificial sweetener. The sweetener, another silent traitor, tricks the brain with the sweet taste and can trigger a release of insulin even without actual glucose, worsening the rebound. When we changed the milk, adjusted the time and temperature, in 2 weeks he already felt his head clearer when he woke up. Within a month, the grandchildren's names came back. He cried in the office and I held his hand. Now, anyone who is watching this video and recognize themselves in this story, I want you to pause and comment on where you are from. Not for me, but to create a map of people who are seeking autonomy over their own health. Write your city, your state. When you see other people from such different places going through the same thing, you understand that the problem is not you. The problem is the lack of specific information, the lack of someone who sits down and explains what the 15-minute consultation cannot explain. Take advantage of this moment and leave your like. Subscribe so that this content reaches more people who are suffering in silence, thinking that it is normal to wake up feeling like a rag. It's not normal. And you'll find out now that the right milk is just the tip of the iceberg. Because I haven't talked about the most powerful kind of night milk, the one that combines slow-digesting casein with live bacteria that act directly on the communication between the intestine and the pancreas. You may have heard of probiotics. But what no one told you is that there is fermented milk, a specific type of curd or full-fat natural yogurt, which when consumed warm before bed, does something extraordinary. The beneficial bacteria in this fermented milk, lactobacilli and bifidobacteria, are not just visitors that pass through the intestine and leave. They communicate with the cells in your gut and produce substances called short-chain fatty acids. These substances enter the circulation, reach the liver and pancreas, and literally send a chemical message that improves insulin sensitivity. It's as if these bacteria were living little pharmacists, producing personalized medicines while you sleep. The mechanism is real. It is observed in thousands of patients, and it is one of the most promising areas of nutrition science. A gut populated by healthy bacteria is a gut that doesn't let excess sugar pass into the blood. It regulates inflammation, which is the root of almost all insulin resistance, and whole fermented milk, drunk warm, is a perfect vehicle to deliver these bacteria at the time when the gut is most receptive to them, during sleep. But here's the mistake that nullifies everything. Almost everyone who tries to do this buys industrialized yogurt, full of sugar, thickeners, gelatin, flavorings. Even natural supermarket yogurts have often undergone a pasteurization process that has killed the live bacteria. You're drinking an acidic cream and thinking you're getting probiotics, when you're actually getting lifeless lactic acid. The difference between a live fermented milk and a pasteurized commercial yogurt is the difference between a fruit tree planted in your backyard and a plastic fruit in the centerpiece fruit bowl. Beautiful, but it does not generate life. The fermented milk that works is the one that you feel the real sour taste, that curdles naturally, which you often make at home with a spoonful of a natural yogurt of good origin as a starter culture. And when you lightly heat this fermented milk, without boiling, so as not to kill the bacteria, and drink it warm before bed, you are making a gesture that the peoples of the Caucasus, famous for their longevity, did instinctively centuries ago. Pay attention to this detail that I'm going to give you now. The ideal temperature to drink this fermented milk is between 37 and 40 degrees, the same temperature as your body. Why? Because probiotic bacteria are used to living at that temperature inside you. If you drink cold milk, the heat shock kills a part of them before they even reach the intestine. If you get too hot, above 45 degrees, you also kill them. Warm, at the temperature of a hug, is how you transport them alive to your interior. This is one of those knowledges that grandmothers had, and that modernity discarded as belief. It's not belief, it's microbiology. I want you to imagine the scene. You're standing in the kitchen. The night is silent, the house dark. You slowly heat a portion of whole fermented milk, feeling the slightly acidic smell rise. You put it in a mug, wrap your hands around it, feel the heat spread through your fingers. You drink in small sips, and each sip goes down and finds a stomach that is preparing for the long night journey. Live bacteria begin to multiply. Casein begins to form its protective gel. Fat begins to envelop lactose, and cholecystokinin signals to the brain. It's okay. It can slow down. The liver receives the chemical message from the bacteria through the short-chain fatty acids and thinks, I don't need to manufacture glucose now. There are allies at work. The pancreas rests, basal insulin maintains a cruising rhythm, and you fall asleep. While you dream, an army of tiny living things works in your favor by repairing the communication between your gut and your metabolism. You wake up 6, 7 hours later, and before you even open your eyes, you feel that your mouth is not dry, your head is not heavy. You look in the mirror and your eyes are brighter. You prick your finger, and the number on the glucometer finally reflects the effort you put in the day before. That's the promise of the right milk at the right time. But, as I said at the beginning, there is a detail that the overwhelming majority of people get wrong. And that detail is the type of fermented milk. It's no use being just anyone. It has to be whole, it has to be naturally fermented, and it has to be eaten warm. If you do this with skim milk, the absence of fat will negate the slowness of digestion, and you may have the insulin spike. If you do this with a sugar-filled yogurt, you're adding fuel to the fire you want to put out. If you drink it cold, the bacteria die along the way, and the casein is slow to clot. It is a ritual of precision, but a simple precision within the reach of anyone. And there is one more mistake: the time. Drinking the milk and immediately going to bed can cause reflux in some people, especially if there is a tendency to hiatal hernia or relaxation of the esophageal sphincter. The ideal is to drink the milk about 40 to 60 minutes before bedtime. This gives time for the stomach to start forming the casein clot and start releasing the first nutrients slowly, without risk of fluid returning to the esophagus. In the meantime, you can do your sleep hygiene. Turn down the lights, move your cell phone away, take a deep breath. Fermented warm milk becomes part of a slow-down ritual that warns your sympathetic nervous system, the one that is on alert, that it's time to pass the baton to the parasympathetic nervous system, the system of rest and digestion. The simple act of heating the milk and sitting down to drink it in peace is already a powerful signal for your body to reduce cortisol, the stress hormone that, as I said, is one of those that tell the liver to manufacture glucose during the night. So what looks like just a glass of milk is actually a symphony of signs: casein forming gel, fat slowing digestion, bacteria producing fatty acids, cholecystokinin signaling satiety, warm temperature preserving probiotics and accelerating coagulation, slowing down ritual reducing cortisol. All of this converges to a single result: lower and more stable fasting glucose. And the most beautiful thing about this is that you are not adding a drug, you are repositioning a food that already existed in your life, giving it back the intelligence that the industry has taken away. Now, my friends, I need to make a confession. What I see most in these years of office is not people who don't take care of themselves. These are people who take too much care and make mistakes due to too much poorly chewed information. It is the person who heard that milk is bad for you and cut out milk, and lost the chance to use casein to her advantage. It is the person who heard that fat is bad for you and exchanged it for skim, and sabotaged her own sleep without knowing it. It's the person who heard that probiotics are good and bought a strawberry yogurt full of glucose syrup, thinking they were doing their gut a favor. The system is not designed to teach you. The system is designed to treat you as a passive consumer who receives the cholesterol pill, the sugar pill, the sleeping pill, and never receives the explanation of how these mechanisms intertwine. The 15-minute consultation does not have space to talk about the temperature of the milk. The health center does not have a sign teaching the difference between casein in ultra-pasteurized milk and that in fresh milk. Television won't tell you that skim milk can be an enemy of your sleep, because this does not sell a blue box. Who is here watching this video so far is someone who is no longer satisfied with the shallow answer. It is someone who feels deep in the soul that the body has a wisdom that needs to be heard. And the wisdom of the body is clear. It responds to rituals, to constancy, to food that arrives in the form that nature has designed. Nature did not make skim milk. Nature made milk with fat, with intact proteins, with the possibility of fermenting naturally and generating bacterial life. We have been taught to be afraid of this fat, to be disgusted by this fermentation, to prefer the sterile, white, odorless product that lasts for months on the shelf. But health is precisely in what spoils. Life is in what is transformed. I want you to take from this conversation not only the information about milk, but a key to reading it to the world. Whenever someone offers a simplified and industrialized version of a natural food, be suspicious. Whenever someone tells you to take away a part of the food because that part is the villain, ask, what did nature put there and why? In the case of milk, fat is there to modulate the digestion of sugar. Protein is there to build and repair. Potential bacteria are there waiting for the right environment to flourish. When you understand this, you stop being afraid of real food and start seeing industrialized products for what they are: incomplete, often sabotaging versions of a wise original. And now, the climax of this conversation. What I'm going to reveal to you now is the most surprising mechanism of all. The one that connects fermented milk, intestinal flora, and your brain in a way that very few people know. Do you remember the brain cleaning I mentioned at the beginning? The glymphatic system, which clears toxins from the brain during deep sleep. This cleaning depends on a slow wave sleep, that heavy sleep at the beginning of the night. And what determines the quality of this slow wave sleep? Among other things, the stability of blood glucose. But there is a second, even more specific factor. The bacteria in your gut, those that arrived alive through fermented milk, produce substances that travel through the vagus nerve, a nerve cord that connects the belly to the brain, and directly modulate sleep cycles. One of these substances is gamma-aminobutyric acid, known as GABA. GABA is a neurotransmitter that calms the brain, reduces anxiety, and induces deep sleep. Guess who produces GABA in your gut? The bacteria in fermented milk, the lactobacilli. When you drink warm fermented milk before bed, you're providing raw material for these bacteria to manufacture your brain's natural soothing. Intestinal GABA reaches the brain through the vagus nerve and literally closes the curtains for sleep to arrive. At the same time, casein stabilizes blood glucose, preventing a sugar spike or crash from waking up your brain in the middle of the night. It is a joint operation of very high precision. Whole milk fat also participates because cholesterol is a precursor to hormones, and the brain needs cholesterol to maintain the myelin sheath, the layer that protects neurons and allows nerve impulses to travel fast. People who take statins to lower cholesterol often complain of memory and sleep problems, and there is a physiological reason for this. I'm not telling anyone to suspend medication, far be it from me. This is a conversation you should have with your doctor. But I'm saying that the indiscriminate fear of fat, including milk fat, may be depriving your brain of a raw material essential for restful sleep and nighttime cleansing of toxins that, over time, accumulate and are associated with neurodegenerative diseases. Think about the dimension of this. A glass of warm, whole fermented milk, calmly drunk 40 minutes before bed, may be the key to a night's sleep that cleanses your brain, stabilizes your blood sugar, feeds your beneficial bacteria, reduces the liver's runaway production of glucose, calms your nervous system, and preserves your memory. And all this for a few cents. All this with a food that humanity has been consuming for thousands of years, but which was disfigured by the industrial logic of the 20th century. This is not a miracle cure. That's basic physiology being restored. It is the body getting back the conditions it has always had to function well. I want you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself tomorrow morning. The alarm clock rings. You open your eyes and you don't feel that sticky drowsiness, that numbness that feels like you slept covered by a blanket of lead. You sit up in bed, put your feet on the floor, and notice that your joints don't hurt as much. You go to the mirror, wash your face, and your eyes meet your own gaze. You recognize yourself. You are not bloated. You are not with the tired expression of someone who fought a war during the night. You prick your finger, and the number that appears on the glucometer is an ally, not a judge. You smile because you know you've understood something that most people ignore. You are no longer a helpless passenger of your own metabolism. You are the captain. This video is not about milk. This video is about finding the path of autonomy again. It's about understanding that the body speaks, whispers, gives signs, and that we just need to learn to listen. If you've made it this far, you're part of a group of people who no longer accept the ready-made answer. You want to understand why. And when you understand why, you no longer need anyone dictating generic rules. You look at a glass of milk and you see casein, fat, lactose, live bacteria, temperature, digestion time, hormonal signaling. You see what's really there. And with that vision, you make choices that no one else can make for you. I urge you to share this video with someone you love. Not as someone who shares any curiosity, but as an act of care. It could be your brother who is taking medicine for diabetes and complaining of tiredness. It could be your wife who wakes up at dawn and can't go back to sleep. It could be your father, your mother, your longtime friend who has accepted the idea that aging is synonymous with falling apart. Send it with a simple message. Look what I discovered. Maybe it will help you sleep better. You're not selling anything. You're reaching out. You are doing for someone what this video tried to do for you. Explain what the system has never explained properly, calmly, in depth, with respect. The information you receive today does not replace your doctor's follow-up. Every body is a unique story, and your trusted doctor needs to know your choices. But now you come to the appointment with better questions. You come saying, "Doctor, I changed skim milk for warm whole fermented milk, and my fasting blood glucose improved. What do you think?" You arrive as a partner in your own health, not as a passive receptacle of prescriptions. This is the role I have always dreamed of for my patients, and that's why I'm here, talking to you in the first person, with the authority of decades in the office, and with the warmth of someone who sits in front of you, looks you in the eye, and finally says, what the 15-minute consultation would never allow. Change your milk, change your night, change your morning. And when you wake up tomorrow with a clearer head and lighter body, remember, you didn't need anything that wasn't within your reach. You just needed the right information at the right time, explained in the right way. Sleep well, my friends. Take care of yourself, and see you next time.